Yeah. Yeah. That's
Got it.
Is it working?
Yep. It's working.
Why is there a group on me?
What's up?
I mean, luckily I get.
About how you feel about food, basically.
Food? I
Yeah.
do a lot of food.
You do.
Yeah, I cook.
Okay. All right. Let's.
Okay.
More importantly, vegan and vegetarian.
Vegan and vegetarian questions. Okay, shoot.
All right. Is this on? Is this going? Okay. Are you vegan or vegetarian?
No. No.
Okay.
I love meat.
What is your view on veganism and vegetarianism?
Let's see. Like, I think it's hard to do, and if you do it right, it can be done. But nutritionally, I feel like it's hard to do because like a lot of people don't get a lot of the nutritional things that they actually need to get from meats that actually have acids and all these other weird things that you can only get from meats.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, it's I feel like it's good. For the let's see, fuck, I'm not good at this. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Well, because yeah, I'm trying to think of like environmentally and stuff like that. You know, like oh man, like don't like because all the fucking chickens and shit. Well, the same thing still happens with vegetables. Like they mass produce vegetables that destroys the environment. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, hit or miss.
Okay. All right. Do you think there should be a push from the government to be more leaning towards veganism and vegetarianism?
Not here. I feel like we're doing like Vermont does a fairly good job. We got City Market. There's like a lot of like restaurants that do like have a lot of vegan options and stuff like that, dairy free, all that good stuff. I feel like Vermont's a good spot to be vegan if you want to be vegan.
True.
Yeah.
Do you think nationally? Do you think it should be pushed more towards other states?
Let's see. I wouldn't say the actual veganism thing, but definitely like better health and stuff like that. That should kind of be like more pushed in like bigger city areas and stuff like where it's not really like kind of known, like a lot more obesity and shit like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like the idea should be brought up, but not like fully pushed into
Yeah.
vegetarianism. Just eat better.
Okay.
That's all.
How many days a week do you eat meat?
Probably like I don't eat that much meat. I eat a lot of fish.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say maybe like three times a week-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you think there's a need for change due to the environmental repercussions?
For veganism or just
Like
everything?
just because of meat, like the big industry of
Yeah.
meat and farming and.
Well, see, all fucking mass and fucking big farming, that's all bad, Like, so I just say support your local, farms and stuff like that, buy local, all that good shit, that's good. But yeah, don't like get fucking, mass produced goddamn like fucking plastic oranges and shit, It's not good for you. Yeah.
Then question.
Okay.
So meat has much higher energy. Oh my god, wait. I'm having trouble reading your hand.
A much higher energy footprint, and it takes 75 times more energy to produce meat than corn. It takes an area of vegetation 7 times the size of Europe to produce food for cattle and other livestock. And 1 hectare of rice or potato can feed 19 to 22 people in 1 year, but 1 hectare of beef or lamb can feed 1 or 2 people.
Yes.
And by 2015 or 2050, we will have less than 0.1 acres per person to grow food, hectares. And it takes 2 to 3 calories of fossil fuel to produce 1 calorie of protein, like soybean, corn, or wheat. But for beef, it takes 54 calories of fuel, fossil fuel. Sorry. It takes 1 calorie for for one. So it's just like that's.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And almost 50% of our world's harvest is fed to animals. As well, in the developing world, there's 32 kilograms of meat eaten a year per person, but in our industrial world, it's 80 kilograms. So, yeah, there's quite a large difference there. And we have reached a record amount of meat consumption this year, 2018, in America.
Yeah, no, I know Americans are really bad with meat. Like, we eat a lot of that shit. Uh, but yeah, no. What was I saying? Yeah, no. I think like just like the whole thing of just like mass growing and mass farming in general is just bad. So just like vegetables included, not probably not as bad as you were saying and stuff like that to like energy efficient and stuff like that. But yeah, I just say yeah. Local everything. Go to local farms, get like local animals and stuff like that that are actually treated right. That's like I'm fine with that. Go hunting. Hunting's actually good for the environment. Let's see, other things. Yeah, I just say we just gotta step away from mass farming. Mass farming is bad. That's the real motherfucker.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, are either of you vegan?
No.
No. Vegetarian?
No.
No. Okay.
I am trying to eat less meat. Ideally I want to be vegetarian, but it's a uphill battle which I'm not currently winning.
What is your view on vegetarianism and veganism?
I think it's great. I think it's great for the environment. I mean, I feel like more people went vegan or vegetarian, then we'd be a lot closer to stopping global warming. But it's also not easy, and unfortunately, a lot of people who tend to rave it in your face, just to boost their own ego.
I think that there should be more humane ways to like slaughter animals and less like massive productions of animal meat, and then there wouldn't necessarily be a need for as many vegetarians.
Yeah, I see that. Do you think there should be a push from the government to push veganism and vegetarianism to either as a nation or as a state?
Let's see. I feel like if the government would try to push it, people wouldn't respond. I feel like I feel like if you're going to enforce it, you got to use positive reinforcement. But really, I think the better. Yeah, I mean, ideally, I feel like the best way would be to curtail the cow, the meat industry. But I feel like it's gonna have to come from the consumer end. So I feel like it would be tricky, but I wouldn't necessarily be against it. I just suppose be against it. But I feel like they should focus on the business end first.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah. Your thoughts?
I think that they should not necessarily force anybody to do that, because I feel like that's a personal choice that people should be able to make. But they can definitely have more vegetarian options, and encourage people to make that choice to help the environment.
Better education.
Yeah, more education on the topic itself and better awareness.
Yeah, and also more and also more action on the part of restaurants, and like every restaurant should have a vegan option. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Every there should be basically maybe giving stipends to people for people that to companies that do produce vegetarian options, and taxing meat, but it should ideally focus on the business end before you go to the consumer end.
Okay. How many days a week do you guys eat meat?
Usually all the days of the week. I wish I didn't.
Yeah. You?
Probably the same.
Same.
Yeah.
Every day. Okay.
Sometimes it's more like 6.
Six
Yeah.
times a week. Okay. Do you think there's a need for change due to these mass productions of farming?
Definitely. Definitely.
Totally, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. We have some. Huh? Okay.
All right. So meat has a much energy. Meat has a much higher energy footprint, and it takes 75 times more energy to produce meat than corn. It takes an area of vegetation 7 times the size of Europe to produce food for cattle and livestock, for all of Europe. So 1 hectare of rice or potato can feed 19 to 22 people, but 1 hectare of beef or lamb can feed 1 to 2 people. And it takes 2 to 3 calories of fossil fuel to produce 1 calorie of protein from soybean, wheat, or corn. But for beef, it takes 54 calories of fossil fuel. And almost 50% of our world's harvest is fed to animals. So how does that make you feel?
I think I realize most of the stuff and I'm still disgusted. I feel very guilty, and I'm gonna try to eat less meat as usual.
I think that if the government knows this, then they should try to come up with some plan to do something. And try to get as
Agreed.
many people involved as possible. What that plan is, I don't know, but something.
There should be something, but there probably isn't. And I could say more, but I'm not going to.
We should educate people on those facts, which is what you're doing. So.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you.
You guys vegan or vegetarian?
I'm not.
I am.
I'm not.
Okay.
What is your view on veganism and vegetarianism?
Yeah, it's like that's what you want to do. Go ahead. Absolutely, go get it.
All right.
I mean, from an ethical standpoint, that's kind of why I started when I was pretty little. But I don't think I'm making a huge difference, but it just makes me feel a little bit better. Just about, yeah.
I totally respect it. If I could pull off being a vegan, I would, but I just don't think that's possible for me at this point in my life.
Do you think there should be a push from the government, to kind of help people understand veganism and vegetarianism?
Well, I think if they were gonna, I think they should offer, if they're gonna offer information for veganism and vegetarianism, they should also offer information for not veganism and not vegetarianism. So I feel like if there's one, there should be the other one. But yeah, I'm all for information.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just the current state of our planet as a whole, I think we need to, the government needs to be pushing for a lot, healthier eating habits, just in general, just because the meat industry is so terrible for our planet. We can't force people to eat, no meat, but it would be a good idea to start
towards it.
Yeah, substitutes.
Yeah, I'm with her. I think that just educating people on what our food is and where it comes from and that whole sustainability aspect of it and what the pros and cons of everything is would be pretty good. Yeah.
How many times a week do you eat meat?
I mean, it depends on what they got in the dining hall. But
True.
personally, I don't find I don't get my protein from anything other than meat. So I try to eat meat at least once a day.
Okay.
I don't eat meat.
Yeah.
I only eat it twice a week because I only eat chicken. So.
Do you think there needs to be change from the repercussions of the environment, on the big meat industry and the mass production of meat and farming?
Yeah, absolutely. It's you can't deny that especially the beef industry in America alone is 100% crippling our ecosystem. So I think that people definitely should be informed about that, and that there should be some repercussions for that.
Yeah, as I said before, the meat industry and the dairy industry, even though I'm a vegetarian and I drink dairy, yeah, it's terrible for our environment, and it will continue to be terrible for our environment. And with the way our planet is heading, we need to figure out substitutions really fast.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of what they said.
Yep. All right. Yeah. And then we're just going to give you some background information on the topic.
Sure, 1 hectare of rice or potato can feed 19 to 22 people in 1 year, but 1 hectare of beef or lamb can feed 1 to 2 people in a year. And 2 to 3 calories of fossil fuel to produce 1 calorie of protein, like soybean, corn, or wheat, but it takes 54 calories of fossil fuel for beef. So some pretty drastic difference there. And almost 50% of our world harvest is fed to animals, which is kind of, yeah, it's pretty, yeah. So and then this year we've had a record amount of meat consumption, ever. And for the impacts on climate change, beef production is increasing the global climate 3 degrees a year. So
It would be interesting to see people deny that it's a problem.
Yeah.
Because it clearly is.
Yeah.
But I did just read something that shows that there are people doing studies, and there's research being done to actually start growing meat, growing chicken from stem cells. And I think that that's definitely a good sign that people are finally coming around and being we need to
we need to change the way things have been done. So I think that's positive. But yeah, I don't think there's a lot of information around for people to know, like, hey, by the way, all of the meat processing and all of the meat just in general in our country alone is really having a huge impact on the the ecosystem. There we go. There we go.
Yeah, I think lab-grown meat, that's a topic that interests me greatly. And I've done some research for it, like, just back in high school. And also, like, insect farming. I mean, that brings up, like, a whole other ethical question, but I think it's a really good idea just because insects are so easy to grow and farm, and they're very inexpensive, and they're very high in protein. And, you know, right now it might seem, like, gross, and so does the fact, like, you know, asking people to stop eating meat when they've eaten meat for their entire lives. It may seem, like, counterproductive and bossy, but, like, our Earth is being destroyed, and, like, we need to stop it. So I think, like, it's worth it to stop eating meat if you want to, like, keep living, obviously. So, yeah.
I mean, it's just everything you said. It's like especially the 3 degrees a year. Like, that's just like when you put that in perspective, that's insane. Like, that's
It's probably way too far away, but.
So, are you vegan or vegetarian?
I am not, no.
Yeah, neither am I.
Okay. What is your viewpoint on veganism and vegetarianism?
I think it's a personal choice, just depending on what somebody feels. I don't know.
I don't know. I see the reasons for doing it, like the ethical
For sure, yeah.
reasons and everything, but I don't know. I feel like I make an effort to eat, like, locally and stuff anyway, so I don't know if it's completely necessary for me personally.
Yeah.
What do you think there should be a push from the government to kind of encourage people to eat or change their diets over to veganism or vegetarianism?
I think there should be more of a push just for, like, being humane to animals, I guess, and, like, push for local foods, local meat, eggs, whatever.
Yeah.
I think not necessarily, like, for veganism or vegetarianism, but.
So just more towards this treating animals right and, like, locally and stuff like that, just not forcing it on someone?
Yeah, I'd say probably the same thing.
Same
Saudi,
thing.
yeah.
How many times a week do you eat meat?
Probably 3 to 4.
I think I probably eat some meat every day. Yeah.
Do you think there is a need to change due to the environmental repercussions of mass farming?
Probably, yeah. I know it affects, like, water supply a lot, so I think there probably should be more awareness of that, I guess. Especially with, like, cow farms, I guess, dairy farms.
Yeah, we definitely see that in Lake Champlain, all the runoff going into our lake.
Yeah, I would also just say travel costs, like making sure that the meat that you eat is local and not being shipped, like, overseas would be ridiculous, but from like states that are really far away from where you live, or
so, like, freshness and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay, and then we have a little bit.
Did you know that meat has a much higher energy footprint? It takes 75 times more energy to produce meat than corn. It takes an area of vegetation 7 times the. I can't read your handwriting. The EU.
I'll just do it. It's fine. All right, guys. I'll inform you. So meat, you already know that, has a much higher energy footprint than anything, like, plant-based, and it takes 75 times more energy to produce meat than corn. It takes an area of vegetation 7 times the size of Europe to produce food for cattle and other livestock for Europe. And 1 hectare of rice or potato can feed 19 to 22 people in 1 year, but 1 hectare of beef or lamb can feed 1 to 2 people in 1 year. 2 to 3 calories of fossil fuel. It takes 2 to 3 calories of fossil fuel to produce 1 calorie of protein from soybean, wheat, or corn. But for beef, it takes 54 calories of fossil fuel. And this year we've reached a record amount of meat consumption in America. So just some thoughts on that, yeah. And for impacts on climate change, it is increasing our temperature 3 degrees a year. So, like beef, yeah, and like just so it's some heavy thoughts to think about. Do you have any thoughts on these facts?
Oh, I'm still processing, I guess. It's a lot.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad now for eating meat at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, thank you guys.
Are you vegan or vegetarian?
I am not.
Are you vegan or vegetarian?
I am not.
What is your view of veganism and vegetarianism?
I'm open to it. I think it's a great thing. I'd like to try to eat more vegetarian, unless I don't eat a lot of meat, but yeah.
Should there be a push from the government towards a less meat society, basically eating healthier, and incorporating that into like restaurants we see?
I think definitely there should be more antibiotic-free and organic meats promoted and less cruelty towards animals.
How many times a week do you eat meat?
I probably eat meat twice a month.
Twice a month?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Do you think there is a need for change due to the environmental repercussions?
Yes. Yes. I don't know all the science behind it, but from what I've read and seen, it is very wasteful the way we produce meat in this country and not very ethical.
Okay, we have some information about
Meat has a much higher energy footprint than any plant-based protein, and it takes 75 times more energy to produce meat than corn. And it takes an area of vegetation 7 times the size of Europe to produce food for cattle and other livestock for Europe. And 1 hectare of rice or potato can feed 19 to 22 people, but 1 hectare of beef or lamb can feed 1 to 2 people. As well, it takes 2 to 3 calories of fossil fuel to produce 1 calorie of protein of corn, wheat, or soybean, but for beef, it takes 54 calories for 1 calorie of protein. So it's a lot more fossil fuels being wasted. As well, the climate change impact is quite severe. It's increasing the global climate 3 degrees a year, just like from greenhouse gas emissions and other things like, methane. And I mean, that is a greenhouse gas, but, it's not doing well for our world. Yeah. So just like hearing these things, like, what do you think?
I think it's great to have knowledge and information, and then you can make decisions that might be a little wiser and more informed. So I think I would consider vegetarianism, maybe not veganism right now, but
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have an awesome day.
So, are you vegan or vegetarian?
No, I'm not.
No.
What is your view on veganism and vegetarianism?
I completely respect it. I see why people do it, and I say go them. That's an amazing lifestyle.
I agree. If people want to do that, then let them do it.
Should there be a push from the government towards a less meat society?
I think so, because I do respect animals and animal treatment. So, yes.
Yes, because of the environmental impacts that it causes.
How many times a week do you eat meat?
Oh, probably 7.
Every day.
Do you think there's a need for change due to the environmental repercussions?
Yes, I do think there needs to be a change.
Yes.
Okay.
We have some information also that
Meat has a much higher energy footprint than any plant-based, protein, and it takes 75 times more energy to produce meat than corn. It takes an area of vegetation 7 times the size of Europe to produce food for cattle and other livestock. And for 1 hectare of rice or potato can feed 12 to 22 people in a year, but only for 1 hectare of beef or lamb, it can only feed 1 to 2 people a year. As well, it takes 2 to 3 calories of fossil fuel to produce protein from soybeans, wheat, and corn, but for beef, it takes 54 calories of fossil fuel. So a lot more waste there. And then globally, the climate has been increasing 3 degrees a year from the meat industry. There's a lot of greenhouse gases released from, cattle and other livestock that are just like obviously increasing the global climate, which is not so great. But how does that make you feel now that you know these facts?
A bit different. I would still consider being a vegetarian or vegan.
There should be, I guess, more of a restriction on the meat industry and their pollution.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Okay. Now we have a question from CCV. It's about cell phone use. Okay. We're wondering about how many hours per day you think you use your cell phone?
I would probably say about 4 hours a day. I think that's probably my average.
Okay. It's like 4 hours or so, including like in the morning when you wake up, be on there for like 10 minutes or so, and just throughout the day?
Yeah, usually I'll be on for like about an hour in the morning, like playing around with stuff, checking my email, and then I'll kind of check stuff like Instagram throughout the day, and then usually I'll be on it for another hour or two at home. So yeah, probably about 4 hours.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
At home, do you have any rules on using phones or for a certain amount of time or at dinner time, family time?
Yes, we try not to use any phones at dinner unless I'm at a restaurant and then they get to use the phone. But we try to minimize phone usage as much as possible.
That's good.
No, on the first page. Like some of the pros and cons.
Oh. Do you know some of the pros and cons of having a cell phone? Some pros are they make communicating with family, friends, and colleagues a lot easier. They combine nearest useful politicians in a single device. They are really useful in energy situations, and they offer constant internet access. The cons of having a cell phone are they are instruments for constant interruptions. They carry risks of privacy and security. They can increase risk of getting into traffic accidents, and they create difficulties with real human interactions.
I think that's all correct. I would say so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So we're just going to ask you one question and a fact. How many social media accounts do you have?
Probably like 3 or 4.
And can you let us know what ones you have? We're just curious.
Sure. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think that's it. So I guess 3.
Thank you. So today, the present day cell phones have more computing power than the computer used for Apollo 11 to land on the moon. And then we just want to thank you for your time.
Sure.
And if you have a comment about the fact, you can go ahead.
Sure, that's pretty crazy, and I didn't know that, but wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you. So how would you feel if you found out that your phone was being surveyed by the government, like your phone calls or your text messages?
I mean, generally I'm not up to anything like that sketchy. I mean, obviously I'm not okay with them like surveying everything I do, but I mean, I wouldn't be that bothered, I guess.
Okay. And then I don't know what to say for a fact. Okay, and then pros and cons? Yeah. So some of the pros of having a cell phone, it's easier to communicate with family and friends. And then also a con of having a cell phone, they carry risks of privacy and security is what we just said. And then they can also risk getting into traffic accidents even more, obviously. But yeah, we just want to thank you for your time, and we really appreciate it.
All right, no problem. Yeah.
So, do you actually have a cell phone?
I do. I do.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the generation of cell phone that you have?
Is it an Apple? It's an Apple iPhone 6.
Have you enjoyed it so far?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, also, we have a little fact for you. Let's see. As of about 2005 or so, about 5 billion people have had cell phones on the earth right now.
5 billion people have cell phones?
5 billion.
Great. We're all connected.
Yeah. Someday they're going to outnumber the people.
I'm sure they will. Yeah.
Okay.
My dog should have one.
I think they actually make that.
The doggy phones? Doggy tracker phones.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Question and a fact. So our question to you is, would you rather talk to someone on the phone or text someone?
I'd probably rather talk to someone on the phone, I think. Probably a longer conversation, probably.
Yep. Yeah. And then, so here's just a quick fact. Did you know within 3 minutes of delivery, 90% of text messages are going to be read? Yep.
So if that means more text messages can be sent, in a shorter period of time than other places can, I mean, or than other like outlets can, it'd probably be like a new idea, like a fresh new idea, probably what I'm saying.
Yep.
And I think that'd be a good thing, to find faster services like that.
Definitely.
That'd be my guess.
Definitely.
So.
Definitely. Well, that's it. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
What it do, kids? We out here, Church Street, asking people about political bias. Let's get it.
Just fucking put it in.
Oh, damn, he's done.
Oh, bro, he's mid-poop right now. Oh my god, I know why there's only 2 of them. The other 2 had the boss. I forgot about that. What do you mean? Those are the...
Okay.
Yep, and you guys are rolling.
Okay. So I'm Max. What's your name?
Isabel.
Nice to meet you, Isabel. So we're wondering, do you think you could definitively place yourself like on the political spectrum, like you left, right, liberal, Democrat?
Yeah, I'm pretty liberal.
Okay. Okay. Where would you primarily say you get your news from?
CNN.
Okay. Do you say when, say, an event comes out, you specifically go to CNN for your news?
No, I get notifications from the app on my phone.
Oh, okay. Okay, what app would that be?
The CNN app.
Oh, okay. Wow. So, would you say you get any news from Facebook?
No, I don't use Facebook.
Smart. Like that. Let's see, what else? Obviously, we can edit me mumbling. But, do you think social media in general has the right to suppress accounts that they believe information is harmful?
Well, not necessarily, because that goes against our freedom of speech.
Excellent answer. I think that's about it. All right, that's about most of our questions. Thank you.
Yep, rolling.
Awesome. All right, so your name is?
Andrew.
Nice to meet you, Andrew. So we just have some quick questions about political bias.
Sure, yeah.
Where would you say you would place yourself on the political spectrum if you definitively could?
Pretty far left.
Okay. So when an event comes out, disaster, anything political, where would you say the first place you turn to for news is?
I pretty much get all of my news from either VPR or the New York Times.
Okay. Have you ever, at any point, thought to explore a wide variety of news sources outside of the ones you usually go to?
I occasionally check BBC News for like international perspective. That's kind of it. Sometimes I'll check like CNN or something if I feel like I just want to hear like another perspective, but that's kind of it, yeah.
That's fair. Do you believe that social media in general has a right to suppress accounts that they deem harmful?
I mean, I don't think that social media is like a right for anyone to be on social media, so like, yeah, they can do that. That's fine.
Would you say that most of your friends are about the same political ideologies as you?
It's harder to say now. A few years ago, I would say yeah, for sure. Probably like less so now, but for the most part, we agree on most things.
Do you believe when you were younger that you got most of your political ideologies from your parents?
They were an influence for sure, but not exclusively. But like, yeah, I mean, I grew up with like pretty democratic parents, so like that was the vibe.
That being said, do you think at all that your ideologies have changed over time since you've gotten older?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, they've like always been changing, and they still are. You know, I'm in my early 30s now. When I was like 10 years ago, I was a lot more hardline about a lot of stuff. Like I feel like the older I get, the softer it all becomes.
Yeah. Okay. Do you feel like you've shifted more across the spectrum or more in the same direction?
A little bit of both. Like maybe more across the spectrum in some ways, and then like refined, like a little more close-mindedly in other ways. You know, but yeah, I guess a little bit of both. It's kind of hard to answer.
That's about all we got for you. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers.
Good day. Thanks, guys. You want me to move it all? You good?
No, we're good.
You sure?
Come on, please.
All right. We're good?
Yeah,
All
go
right.
for it.
So I'm here with
Liz.
Nice to meet you, Liz. So we're wondering, do you think you could definitively place yourself like on the political spectrum?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty liberal, but like not super duper. I don't know. I don't really understand a lot of aspects of politics that I feel like I should, so I don't think I can like label myself as a specific spot.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you feel like the opinions that you do have now, you know, your stances, do you think those have come from a lot of things that your parents taught you when you were younger?
Yeah, I grew up in a very like liberal area of Massachusetts, and I've always kind of been surrounded by those ideologies. So,
where would you say you primarily get your news from?
my friends, and then I fact check it. I kind of go look it up and see. Usually, I don't really know where I just, yeah, I don't know.
Would you say you get any news from Facebook?
No, I don't use Facebook.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. Would you say that your friends are about, you know, the same political ideologies as you are?
Yeah, totally.
Do you think social media has a general right to suppress accounts that they think are harmful?
Like as far as just like if an Instagram post is like super opinionated on something, like to get rid of it. I mean, I guess it depends on how many people find it offensive. Like if it's a super big deal or if it's super controversial, then maybe. But I feel like everyone has the right to speak their mind on certain subjects. So.
Do you believe in fake news?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I think that's all we got for you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, and I'm rolling.
We're good?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm here with
Lindsay.
Evan.
All right. So, do you think you guys could like definitively place yourselves on the political spectrum?
Definitely a liberal.
Yeah, definitely a liberal.
Do you guys think that these ideologies you got from your parents when you were younger?
Definitely my dad. Yeah.
I would say, yeah, I grew up in North Carolina, so like I'm definitely a little more conservative than most liberals, but I think I evolved my liberal standpoints from like my friends and everything growing up.
Yeah, do you guys think that most of the people you hang out with and, you know, surround yourself with have the same ideologies as you?
Most of them, not all of them, but most of them, yeah.
Yeah, I would say definitely.
You guys use Facebook, Snapchat, a lot of social media?
Yes.
I just recently deleted Facebook off of my phone because I was like, no.
Do you say you go to those outlets in any way for news?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. I use the news app on my phone a lot.
Do you think that these social media outlets have the right to suppress accounts and other things that they think might be harmful or hate speech?
If it's harmful to the like community, then yeah.
Yeah, hate speech is hate speech. Like even if it was left hate speech, like against like people who aren't bad, that just people view as bad. Hate speech is hate speech.
Do you guys concern yourself in any way with local politics? Like you said, you're from North Carolina. Do you stay updated in any way about senators, governors, things like that?
Pat McCrory sucks. He's an asshole. So, and he's not the governor anymore. He was. So a little bit. I would say a little bit.
No, I really don't.
Would you guys consider yourselves to be, in general, just well-informed when it comes to politics?
Not really, no. Just like about the big stuff that happens.
Well, due to the classes that I'm taking, yeah, because I'm a social work major, so a lot of my classes are like very political.
Where would you guys say you primarily get your news from?
Primarily BBC.
I have an app that like has a news feed from like all the news sources, so I don't know.
Would you consider these news sources in any way to be biased?
Yeah, I think BBC's like a little bit left, but
Oh, every news source is biased. There's no possible way that a news source can't be biased.
That being said, when, say, like a big event comes out, you know, scandal, things like that, would you say that you would go to a wide variety of news sources to investigate this event?
yeah, probably to like hear everything from both sides.
I do, yeah. I do.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks, too.
Would you guys possibly want to snack from?
And rolling.
All right. I'm here with Gordon. Nice to meet you, Gordon. So, do you think you could definitively place yourself on the political spectrum?
No.
Okay. Do you think that your ideologies have changed since you were younger and until you got older?
Well, I think when people are younger, they don't really understand politics at all. They just kind of see who they think is a good guy and a bad guy, you know, judged on what their parents have led them to believe. So I think that now that I have more of an understanding of policy and just the general circumstances of the times we're in, I'd say, yeah, things have changed for me.
Where would you say you predominantly get your news from?
Probably Vice, New York Times, and I also look into right-wing stuff. Sometimes I watch Fox.
Yeah, would you ever consider any of these news sources to be biased?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
I think they all are.
You said you're in a rush, so that's all.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Appreciate it. That was great.
And I'm rolling. Go for it.
All right. So I'm Max. Your name is?
Rob.
Nice to meet you, Rob. So do you think that you could definitively place yourself on the political spectrum?
On the what?
The political spectrum. Would you say you're liberal, Democrat?
Pretty much say I'm a liberal.
Okay. Where would you say you primarily get your news from?
CNN or the TV.
Would you say you get any of your news from social media?
Sometimes.
Do you think your political ideologies have changed in any way since you were younger?
Over the years as I've gotten older.
Do you think you've strayed further from where you started, or do you think you've gotten stronger in where you started?
Pretty much stronger.
Do the people you hang out with primarily have the same ideologies as you do?
Not really.
Do you think this encourages more of a hostile debate or more of a civil discussion?
More of a civil discussion.
Do you think that that's something society may be lacking in today, is the ability to have a civil discussion?
Yes, they need to work on that.
I agree. Well, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.